Let's bring you some other news. Mmusi Maimane is outlining what the Democratic Alliance will do in its first 100 days in office if it wins the elections in May. eNCA Samkele Maseko is tracking that story. He joins us now from Pretoria. Samkele, before we get to what he had to say there in Pretoria, there was a worrying, well, some are calling it worrying, clip that was posted on Twitter of Mmusi Maimane challenging Mampintsha to a bout in a boxing ring. Perhaps not the best time to use this as a point of electioneering?
Well, Mmusi Maimane is basically saying here in Mampintsha must enter into a boxing ring and he will probably knock him out in the first round. Some on Twitter are basically saying he's using this issue as an electioneering tool, but he seemed very angry at what Mampintsha seemed to have allegedly done in physically assaulting Babes Woduma, which would be his girlfriend and fellow artist in his music stable. But I'm going to throw straight to him. Why would you want to have a boxing match with Mampintsha, seeing that you are promoting violence for violence on this issue?
No, I mean, first of all, I think it's important that as men we stand up together and we say not in our name. It's unacceptable. I'm a husband of one wife and I have a daughter. And ultimately, I would never tolerate that. And therefore, if there's pent-up violence, I'm not asking for people to take the law into their own hands. I'm saying let's go into a ring, a proper controlled with the rules so that we can deal with the matter. But before we get there, let's make sure that the police do their job. I would insist more than anything that this man have a charge against him, that the allegations are being investigated, and if he's found guilty, he must be locked up for a long time. We cannot tolerate a society upon which people are behaving in this manner. I'm not even responding in any other way. I'm just as a father. If anyone did that to my daughter, they would know from me.
So you want to blacksmith him?
There can be no debate. We must go into a ring, because if he feels we must take him, show him in the ring what must happen to him.
Why would you want to promote violence for violence in this particular matter? Why don't you, as the DA leader, the official opposition of the Democratic Alliance and the official opposition in the country, just go down to Durban, go to Umlazi, lay a case of assault against Mampintsha?
No, I've made it clear. A charge must be open. He must be criminally prosecuted. Boxing is not about violence. It's about getting in a ring with someone where there are rules upheld, and if he feels he's that strong to want to take on a physical act against a woman in that way, then as a man we must stand up against him in a controlled environment with the law, but it doesn't change the fact that he must face a criminal case and go to jail.
My colleague Desin Thafia in Durban has just gotten a statement where Mampintsha basically says that this is a clip of a new music video they are shooting with Babes Woduma titled Bazonya, basically saying they are overwhelmed by the response this particular clip has received. What's your response to this alleged letter that he's sent out?
My response is that the matter must be investigated thoroughly, and we must hear all sides of the story. But ultimately, here's the fundamental issue. If you want to raise an issue about rape, it would be inappropriate to put a video about rape on a music video. Violence in our society has beset our society. And if you want to market a music video by marketing it by simply putting a video of domestic violence on the table, an issue so serious, it tells you that you are simply stunting and ultimately have no moral conscience to be able to speak about such a crucial issue in a country that cannot be accepted. Barbaric behavior must be condemned. Therefore, I don't accept his excuse.
I'm just going to come next to you here and look at the West Wing, where President Cyril Ramaphosa currently sits and occupies that seat. In your first 100 days, what would you do to change in that first and highest office in the land in South Africa? It's a very beautiful view of the West Wing, and I assume you've got an aspiration to occupy that beautiful office currently occupied by your political opponent. What would be the first thing you do to change once you occupy that office?
Yes, as we've said up front, we have a plan to put a job in every home, a plan that says we have an agenda for reform that will build one South Africa for all. That plan is predicated on making sure we pass the Jobs Act. So the first thing is to attract incentives, give incentives for people to come and invest in this country. We want to target key sectors that can create jobs so that we look at manufacturing, look at agriculture, look at tourism. We want to ultimately ensure that we provincialize police so that there's safety for citizens. We want to make sure that we deploy our troops to borders so that we can secure borders so that citizens and non-citizens have got got their rights protected. Furthermore, we want to make sure that we pass legislation that ensures that for small businesses they're exempted from key cumbersome labor law. And then we must look at SOEs, because certain SOEs like ESCOM, we want to break them up into two, so that there's one for distribution and one for build, so that municipalities that can purchase energy directly can be able to purchase from independent power producers. And then we must put SAA on business rescue. Why are we flying rich people instead of making sure that we deal with poor people by making sure that rails, ports and other matters that are controlled by PRASA are brought to provinces and cities, so that we can have an integrated transport plan?
With due respect to Mmusi Maimane, it seems as if you and Cyril Ramaphosa have been comparing notes. He's breaking ESCOM into three parts. You are saying ESCOM must be broken in two parts. There must be IPPs, independent power producers. It seems as if you've been practicing the issue of the Free Market Foundation, but the both of you, and have been comparing notes. What's the difference between what Mmusi Maimane is offering and what Cyril Ramaphosa of the ANC is offering, or it's just one thing?
Mr. Ramaphosa is in a party where ultimately there is state-led economic development. They believe SOEs must be bloated, not made less. He's built a big state, and the ANC is fundamentally corrupt. So he has no capability of being able to do anything. I don't believe the state must be at the forefront of development. I think citizens are able to do that. So more than anything, Mr. Ramaphosa has been taking on DA policy. That's why it's rejected by Ace Magashule, rejected by David Mabuza, because it's not his party's policy. Our party policy has always been, we've tabled this thing about the cheaper energy bill to make sure citizens are paying cheaper a number of years ago. That was about splitting ESCOM. We've long time ago made sure that issues like PRASA are controlled at a local level. That's a long-time DA policy. When it comes to the stimulus on micro-enterprise, we've always focused on that. So ultimately, when he's coming towards DA policy, we recognize the fact that we're already setting an example. That's why where we govern, unemployment is low and there's no corruption. And we show to the people of this country that, in fact, the DA can be trusted with the future of all citizens, not just some.
So then when you speak about the IPPs, the independent power producers, that effectively mean there'd be a closure of certain coal mines in the country. What would you then suggest that workforce within the coal mines, where do they go? Because once you bring in independent power producers in a free market foundation where you're promoting private entities and private companies to come and provide electricity to the ESCOM, that would mean they would be maximizing on profits and less on the expenditure they do to produce that energy, which would ultimately result in job losses. Where must that workforce go, where there would be a jobs bloodbath in the country?
We have demonstrated already that, in fact, already we do have a jobs bloodbath. ESCOM are holding our whole economy ransom. You try a manufacturing sector where you are out of energy for 4 hours in the day. That's unsustainable. So the choice we've got to make is whether we lose all the jobs or ultimately diversify what happens at ESCOM. When I talk about municipalities being able to purchase directly from independent power producers, those are capable municipalities. So ultimately, the demand for ESCOM, as far as the distribution company, will always remain, because the country isn't all just surrounded by metros. Secondly, independent power producing is about the sustainability in a climate-changing country. Ultimately, we're going to face the effects of global warming. So therefore, we have to ensure that we bring on green energy in a much more aggressive way. And thirdly, I've always advocated for reskilling of workers, and I think those workers who are currently in a coal-producing environment can be absorbed into a wind, gas and energy. This brings about skills that aligns us with the 21st century. And therefore, lastly, I want to work with everybody that we find a solution that works for all our people.
But Mmusi, you are not providing a solution here. Who gives that workforce the necessary skills? Is it the government, or is it the current entities, your Glencore, your Exaros, your Anglo-American that controls these mines and runs them, the Guptas and their Tageta? Who gives this workforce this necessary skill?
Part of the stimulus that we've put on the table is that in the Jobs Act, we make it clear that there's a tax incentive that's designed for reskilling workers. And furthermore, when a new company comes in here to invest in gas or solar, they have to be able to be obliged to train the labor force that they'll be bringing on board. So this is a partnership that says that how can we ensure that rather than having these cumbersome seaters that sit elsewhere, let's ensure that we localize training, incentivize company for reskilling. And some of these companies are already doing it. Because today, even if you are mining gold or platinum, you simply are not going to be able to take a rock driller down the ground in the same way as you always used to. Technology is coming on board, and therefore there's already a reskilling mantra on the table. And I'm saying we can be much more aggressive at doing it over a long period of time across different sectors, and these employees will then be reabsorbed in new sectors that are coming on board as new companies are set up. If we keep ESCOM as it is and it fails, it will be devastating for the entire economy of South Africa. That's a risk we must face up to. And secondly, the model is unsustainable. It means that the taxpayer who's sitting at home is going to pay for more expensive energy and for an entity that cannot deliver that energy, as is the case now. So we need change, and we need it now. If we just keep doing the same, we're going to get the same outcome. So we need to break it down and ensure that distribution company can face up to competition.
You've been criticized as a person who prioritizes slogans rather than pure content and giving South African solutions. Some within your own party criticized you at the Rand Stadium, saying you are delivering a political speech which is largely about the economic freedom fighters, about the ANC, and less about your manifesto, a 15-page statement or document that you had, 10 of which those pages were a political statement and 5 were a manifesto of the DA. Is that true criticism, or are people taking it too far?
I think today I've just tabled a plan that shows what we would do in the first 100 days of government. We're the only party with an agenda for reform, but more than anything, we're the only party that demonstrates, of the very 10 pages you wrote, we demonstrated that where we're in government, already delivery is taking place. We showed the fact that unemployment is decreasing in DA governments. We showed that we eradicate corruption. We've got a plan that's workable in the manifesto, and we've got an agenda for reform. And today was a start of saying, how do we bring out that plan, that 10-point plan that says in the first 100 days, South Africans can expect a change in government that will ensure we put a job in every home.
Our time is up, but I'll just ask you this one last question, a political one. The knives seems to be out and to stab you in the back in the Democratic Alliance. Is there a pending vote of no confidence? Should the DA drop after the elections against you? And who is driving that vote of no confidence? Is it the formerly liberal white or purported white cabal in the Democratic Alliance?
Firstly, none of it exists. There's no formula for that. The Democratic Alliance is united, facing forward. We are engaged in an organization that is growing, that is attractive to more people, and along with change, South Africans must come together, work together towards this future, and therefore I'm not anxious. I don't lose sleep about that. We've got governments that are focused, our parties united, and we're focused on delivering an election that the DA grows. That's the focus, and I actually welcome this question because I think it's a great opportunity for us to show the fact that when others are busy dividing us on race and fighting within, we're focused on delivering one South Africa for all.
So Helen Zille doesn't want you out, your former political mentor?
Helen Zille said goodbye this weekend at the Western Cape, and she's done a great job at the Western Cape, and I wish her well in her next endeavours.
So she doesn't want you out?
Not at all.
That's Mmusi Maimane, the Democratic Alliance leader, speaking about political issues and their manifesto.
All right, well, thanks very much for that. Our reporter Samkele Maseko.